Peace and love, creatives. Today's sketchbook session is going to be a little bit different. I am using acrylic gouache and they are made by Turner. I've had them for quite some time, but I'm not quite sure if I've used them in a video. So yeah, this might be the first time you're seeing me use this acrylic gouache in a video. What I decided to do today was, number one, whip out my Arches watercolor sketchbook that I've had for way too long and actually use my sketchbook for what it's intended for. You know what I mean? Practice. So I'm planning on going into this piece right here, and it's solely for practice, solely for curiosity, and how I can use this acrylic gouache. I was watching a fellow YouTuber by the name of Chris Hong, and she was using acrylics, but she was using them as she would watercolor. So they were very, very diluted paints, and she would layer on top until she had her desired color or gradient or piece. And it got me to thinking if I can do something similar to that with the acrylic gouache, and maybe it not being as frightening to use, I guess. Not frightening, but you kind of like go in and you're like, well, if I put it on there, it's going to be on there, and yeah, I can paint over it. But how long did I take to do this? And am I just going to regret, putting the paint on the paper? This kind of gives me a little bit of leeway, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna, put one layer, then another, and then another until I get the desired look that I'm looking for. And with this piece, that's pretty much what happened. It was fun to go in and see what kind of layers I can put on top of each previous layer. But while I was doing it, unfortunately, which is the case for me a lot, I got really antsy. And I kind of wish that I had my heat tool next to me, because I think I would have been able to go a little bit further and have a little bit more fun. So if I do this again, I think that my next sketchbook session will have the heat tool next to me so that I don't get antsy before I'm fully done experimenting with the medium. So after I was done with the initial experimentation and I had an idea of what I wanted to do with my two next pieces, I went in with everything I learned and started painting this duck scene. Now, the ducks were just like from my imagination. I didn't look up a reference at all for it. It just, from what I remember ducks to look like. So if it's not very duck looking, it's okay. It's what I wanted to make it look like. And I love the way it came out. And that's it. That's all that matters with your art. Are you happy with what you put on that paper? It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You want people to like it, but at the end of the day, you should like it a lot more. You should be satisfied a lot more with what you did. As far as like the little story that I made up with the ducks, it's kind of like they had like a conversation earlier on in the day, and they were like, hey, we never get to see the sunset, and I really want to see the sunset. So meet me up on top of the hilltop where you can just see the sun coming down over the trees. I'll meet you there. And that's pretty much what they did. They met each other at the said location, and are getting ready to enjoy the sun going down over their trees and by the pond, where they don't get to see it because the trees end up covering the final set. Which is just a cute little story. I had fun mixing the orange with the yellow into their beaks. It made like this really pretty gradient that you really can't get on the video, but it just was very fun to do. I also took inspiration from the grass that I made in the previous page and played even more with layering on top with different colors and variations of the green grass. And I think it came out really good. At this point, I was trying to make like a little gradient of the sun and make it like, kind of glow. But I figured that I should have done that in the beginning when I started putting color into the sun, and it wasn't working. So I just stopped and colored the sun back. As far as the dog illustration is concerned, I went in a little bit more confident from doing the first two pieces, and I just really felt like I was like in a flow state at this point, where I knew where I wanted things to go and where I felt like I can experiment a little bit more. So I definitely was playing with the greens and throwing in the greens and treating it like watercolor-ish, you know what I mean? So I would throw in some greens and yellows and mix them all together and like just see what would come of it. And I was very, very satisfied with the piece and the way the bushes and the trees and the grass all came out. Love the texture that came out of my experimentation and my process. I feel like my next piece will be even better when I do make a piece. Like, my whole end result, honestly, is to hopefully get something on a canvas and make it a little bit, more finished and maybe even sellable, you know what I mean? But as far as the sketchbook pieces are concerned, the dogs behind or in front of the hydrant is like an homage to like water cooler talk, if we were like in an office or anything, or or something like that. So here the dogs are having hydrant talk and they're just waiting for their turn to enjoy their little time at the hydrant, and they're taking in the environment and the surrounding. And I just thought it was the cutest, funniest thing. I love the way I drew the dogs, where they're definitely more stylistic and fun, and not so much that I had to make it look like any kind of specific dogs. As far as like the colors were concerned, I definitely wanted them to all have their own little personality to them, and I feel like I was able to do that. I named the dog all the way on the right Chocolate, but that's as far as I got because he reminded me of chocolate. So if you want to name those other two dogs, you go right ahead and put it in the comments. And anybody who likes the names that anybody else put, just put a like next to the comment and boom, we've named the doggies. But the funny part with the Dalmatian, I was just going to make like a black and white spotted dog, not super spotted like a Dalmatian, but it was just one of those things that just happened, like happy little accidents. Thank you, Bob Ross. And I was there for it. I enjoyed it. I totally took it in, and I love the way this piece came out. I would love to make a actual illustration on a canvas similar to these two, but different, of course. I'm not really big on duplicating pieces, so I might make something similar to this, but not exactly, if I do end up putting it on canvas. I want to thank you for watching, and hopefully this inspires you to take out some old supplies and that precious sketchbook, or those precious supplies and that old sketchbook, and make some art and have some fun.